The Greens believe in equality, and we're committed to doing whatever we can to achieve equality. Equality in our community, equality in our society, equality in our economy and in our workplaces. The gains we have already made in achieving equality have come from a long, hard struggle, taking many twists and turns. It's required conflict and compassion, education and legislation, courage and conviction. And the Greens are committed to continuing our walk on the long road to equality. And that's why today I'm introducing this Greens bill to boost women's super. The Sex Discrimination Amendment Boosting Superannuation for Women Bill 2014 will be another modest but important step on the road to equality. Mr Deputy Speaker, equality for women is still a long way off, particularly when it comes to pay. Despite the many steps forward, women often still do not get equal pay for equal work. Women on average still earn less than men and don't have the same opportunities as men to progress their careers. One of the areas where workplace inequality and pay inequity hits hard on women is in retirement. This bill is one step in addressing the significant financial inequality women face in retirement. In 1984, the Sex Discrimination Act came into force, highlighting the need for anti-discrimination legislation to protect women's rights and enhance gender equality. Section 14 of the Act prohibits discrimination against women in employment or in superannuation. It's a sad fact that 30 years later, there still remains a significant financial imbalance between men and women. The gender pay gap has hovered between 15% and 18% for the last 2 decades and is currently 17%. The Global Gender Gap Report 2014 ranks Australia as only 24th of 142 countries for women's equality. It seems that although we've made some progress in addressing gender inequality, it's not happening fast enough, and it's an issue that in some respects is being made worse. The gender pay gap persists after women stop working, and it's evident further in retirement. When you look at the Australian Bureau of Statistics average superannuation account balances, they show that the average superannuation account balances were $82,615 for men and just $44,866 for women in 2011-2012. There's a number of reasons for this. Women have average lower incomes, and there's a lack of women attaining senior positions at work. Women take more time out of paid work to undertake unpaid caring work, such as raising children or caring for other family members. Women are more likely to work in part-time or casual roles, and in such circumstances almost always receive lower incomes. We need laws that reflect the reality of women's working lives. We need to encourage employers to take steps to enable women to continue to participate in the workforce in addition to the other responsibilities they have. And if we don't, we're going to see an increased number of women in poverty in their old age. This bill takes a step towards addressing the imbalance in retirement by ensuring that employers are able to contribute more super for women employees than men employees without being considered to have breached anti-discrimination legislation. Progressive and far-sighted employers who recognise the need for women to receive higher superannuation contributions currently have to apply for an exemption from the anti-discrimination legislation. There are employers already doing this. Financial advisors Rice Warner, for example, contribute an additional 2% in super contributions for their women employees, having gained such an exemption. This bill will remove the barrier of employers having to apply for an exemption, a barrier which takes time and money for those progressive employers who want to take steps to rebalance financial gender equality. I'll briefly outline the details of the bill. Schedule 1 of the bill sets out the relevant amendments to the Sex Discrimination Act 1984. Items 1 and 2 will be additions to Section 14 of the Sex Discrimination Act 1984 and provide for the application of a proposed new Section 41C. The proposed new Section 41C confirms that discrimination by an employer against a female employee is not unlawful if the discrimination is done on the grounds of the employee's sex and involves the employer making an employer superannuation contribution that is more than otherwise required by law. These simple but effective changes will make a significant difference to an employer's willingness to contribute more to women employees' superannuation. The bill will not create any financial burden on the budget or cost to government, but it will give effect to important human rights obligations of our country. In particular, the United Nations Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women. Article 11D of the Convention states that the right to equal remuneration, including benefits, and to equal treatment in respect of work of equal value, as well as equality of treatment in the evaluation of quality of work. Mr Deputy Speaker, the Greens believe that there will be widespread support amongst business and the community for these changes. The Association of Superannuation Funds of Australia, the peak industry body for the superannuation sector, recently released a report entitled The Future of Australia's Super, a new framework for a better system, which outlines a number of recommendations. This bill will implement one of those recommendations, that employers should be able to contribute more to super for women without being considered to have breached anti-discrimination legislation. Addressing the gender imbalance in superannuation funds is particularly important given the life expectancy difference between men and women. On average, women live 3 to 4 years longer than men, yet have considerably less superannuation to live on in retirement. Women are retiring without enough money, and the gender inequality of both pay and superannuation are compounding to leave many women disproportionately impoverished in their retirement. It is unacceptable in the 21st century that women are reaching the end of their working lives without enough money to live on. It's something this parliament can do something about, and it's something this parliament should do something about. Instead of taking steps towards this inequality, unfortunately, the current government continues to move backwards on financial gender equality, abolishing the low-income superannuation contribution from July 2017, which will impact 1 in every 2 working women. And of course, the planned university fee hikes will disproportionately affect women who take time out of the workplace for caring responsibilities or undertake part-time work, during which time the interest on their student debt will continue to pile up. And the government has delayed the increase in the superannuation guarantee charge to 12% until 2025. Mr Deputy Speaker, this bill, without imposing any obligation on government, will allow far-sighted employers to help redress some of these inequalities. And what is worth underscoring is that any action on employers or by employers remains voluntary. The bill will not force employers to contribute more superannuation to women employees than men, but will remove the costs in both time and money of having to apply to the Human Rights Commissioner for exemption from anti-discrimination laws. The Greens hope that it will encourage more employers to recognise the need for women to have more super contributions, given the significant financial imbalance they face in retirement. This bill gives employers an opportunity to act to fix the systemic inequality that women continue to face without placing an additional obligation on them to do so. And in fact, from the government's point of view, this removes an element of so-called red tape that the government often claims is restraining business. And I note with interest that in all of the bills that have been brought before this parliament to reduce so-called red tape, not one of them has contained a positive measure such as this that would have the impact of reducing inequality. This is one that we hope that the government can get behind. And for that reason, Mr Deputy Speaker, the Greens will not be seeking to push this bill to a vote immediately. We hope that this is a bill that can pass this parliament with everyone's support. As I've said, from the government's perspective, it imposes no additional obligation on employers and in fact removes the requirement for them to apply for an exemption. And from the opposition's perspective, given their commitment to superannuation and to closing pay gaps, it is a measure that they should support as well. So we're keen to allow members to examine and consider the implications of this bill, because we believe every member of parliament should be able to support it. We intend to move for an inquiry into the bill to enable this and other barriers to retirement equality for women to be addressed. So, Deputy Speaker, gender equality in the workforce is a continuing problem, and no more so than when it comes to women's retirement. The Greens are committed to solving this problem. This bill is not the complete solution, but it's an important step towards righting the gender imbalance. I commend the bill to the House.